Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Wednesday, October 27th, 2021 Franklin Board of Education meeting to order. Can I have a roll call, please, Mrs. Larson?
Yes. Dr. Beer is excused. Dr. Kahn may be arriving late. Mr. Sprague?
Here.
Mrs. Witkowski?
Here.
Mr. Alexandrovich?
Here.
Mrs. Sapersky?
Here.
We are here, all of us who are here.
Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'd like to welcome Leanne Nazy, our interim curriculum director, to the table. She's been with the district for this is her second year in the district, and welcome to the table.
Thank you.
Want everybody to know who's around. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been approved. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, school presentation, Southwood Glen Elementary. Dr. Mowbray, please.
Hi, I'm Bridget Mowbray, the principal at Southwood Glen, and I want to thank the board for the opportunity to speak tonight, and we're really excited to showcase some of our first graders and some of the work that they've been doing in mathematics. I want to start out by introducing our first grade team, Mary Augustini, Amy Stack, and Lisa Ludwig, and they will be sharing a little bit of information about Eureka Math and a first grade problem, and then we're going to have the pleasure of hearing from our first grade mathematicians on some different ways that they thought through those problems. There we go. Voila.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so we're obviously going to be focusing on math, as Dr. Mowbray said. The students will be demonstrating a process that they use when doing an application problem. This is something that we do for a warm-up in math. This is not like our entire math curriculum. The application problems that we pose to students help them understand mathematical concepts by making context more concrete. These problems are essential for students to build the skills to transfer their mathematical learning to new and different contexts. That is the goal, educating students who know and can apply mathematical concepts to the world around them.
Our Eureka Math curriculum emphasizes the read, draw, write process as the overarching framework to help students make sense of and solve application problems. This framework encourages students to make connections between the problem and the symbolic math that they're learning. So when we follow the read, draw, write process, the students first read the problem in its entirety, just to get a big picture idea of what the question is asking. And then they consider, what do I know and what don't I know? They then move into the draw step, where they reread the problem one chunk at a time, and they stop to model their thinking with a math drawing. And after each chunk, the students ask themselves, can I draw something now? And what can I draw? And we often teach them to use simple math drawings rather than drawing pictures of people or cats or whatever the problem is about. We teach them to use circles or hearts or squares, or to fill in their circles in different ways to show the different groups within the problems. That way they can be more efficient. And then they move into the right step, where students write a symbolic math statement that represents their thinking. So in first grade, that would be addition or subtraction. And it's all based on their math drawing. Next, they write an answer statement with words in the original context of the problem. Students finally consider the reasonableness of their answer. The read, draw, write process is a flexible approach that can be applied to any word problem that students encounter. It encourages students to make sense of the mathematical information instead of just scanning the word problem for numbers and keywords, which can often point students in the wrong direction.
And the best part of tonight are our students. We have Leah Jablonski. There we go. We have Chelsea Novinsky. And then Rian Mehta. And here's the problem that they worked through. There were 6 students on the bus. At the next stop, some more students got onto the bus. Then there were 10 students on the bus. How many students got on the bus at the bus stop? Write an addition sentence and a subtraction sentence to show 2 ways to solve this problem. Draw a rectangle around the unknown number that you found. Include a number bond, number sentence, and a statement. And this sign sounds like a lot, but the kids can really do this at this point in the year on their own. It is just amazing that they can follow all those steps and get it in. So I believe we're starting with Leah.
Let's see. Here we go. Is it okay if it's upside down like that?
There's that little swirly button.
Put the camera on the side.
This is geometry.
How many teachers does it take?
First, I drew the buses. As you can see, the rectangle. So I drew 6 circles for some students. And then the A stands for already, and the T stands for then. So there I drew a picture number bond. And there I am showing that 4 more students came on. I made them a little more different, like different shape and different color. I circled in those circles, and I just left the triangles wide so you can tell them apart, so then you know that they didn't come on the same time. And at the bottom here, I wrote 6 plus 4 equals 10. Made the rectangle, and here I made a circle. 10 minus 4 equals 6. There were 6 on the bus. 4 more came on, so then there were 10.
Thank you.
So first, this is the 6 students that first got on the bus. And then the 4 is down here so you can tell them apart. And then I wrote my number bond, but I didn't do a picture one. I did a number one. And then it says 10 minus 6 equals 4. And then 4 plus 6 equals 10. And then I wrote 4 students got on the bus stop.
We do have one boy who can do math.
Right? Okay, Rian, you want to talk about what you did?
There were 6 students on the bus, B for bus, and 4 more came on the bus and asked for some more, and I colored them. And the number bond is right here, 6, 4, and the 10. And the number sentence was 6 plus 4 equals 10. And the subtraction sentence was 10 minus 6 equals 4. And the statement was 4 more kids got on the bus.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I don't know if you have any questions for our teachers or students about the math or the problems that you saw, or the program in general.
What's the number bond?
So they could probably.
Number bond is a representation that they use to show how the numbers are connected and related to each other. So we use it to relate the addition to the subtraction. And so the total is always separated from the two parts. And what they were doing was an unknown add-in problem. So they were looking for one missing part. And that's why they boxed the 4 in both of the number sentences. And so we teach them to think about numbers and how they relate to each other. And then Leah talked about using a picture bond. They can also do it with a picture bond where they draw 10 shapes, 6, and then count up to see how many they need to make the numbers relate to each other. So it's just one of the things that's taught. Later they use it to break apart teen numbers into like 10 and some more, and that helps them to more efficiently work with the numbers. So a lot of thinking, and I know they were a little bit nervous. When we work with the kids, we'll sit down next to them while they're working on problems like this and ask them to tell what their thinking is, and that this is their way of showing their tracks of their thinking, so that if somebody didn't read the problem, they could follow the problem and understand what they're showing. So they really have grown a lot already this year, and we've got some really bright little kids who are ready to show off their learning. It's great.
So we're going to hear from the parents too, or did you guys all follow that? Yes, okay.
And the parents have to learn this way of math.
It's a little different, yeah.
And Eureka, and we've got a lot of parent-tip letters that go home that really spell it out for the parents to show why we're drawing it this way, because we do teach them to do it several different ways, just so that they really understand the process of working with numbers and not just rote learning of memorizing facts. They have to prove that and show why they got the answers they got. And then that writing component is also so important, because as they go up through the grades and they get into the forward exams and things, they always ask them to write explanations of what they're doing. And if we start it at first grade, then, you know, it just becomes something they do all the time, and it doesn't become so scary. I don't know about you, but growing up, when you'd get those word problems and you'd read them and just be like, by the time you're done reading the problem, you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Or you just picked out the 5 and the 3, and you know it's going to be 5 plus 3 because you're working on plus that week.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how I remember math reading. And it was easy if you just got the right numbers and did them in the right order, but now they really have to think.
And we switch up between addition and subtraction so much that they really do have to recognize that they are related.
And we do a lot with the sum. There are 6 kids on the bus. Some get on or some get off, and then we have to discuss that. And that's pretty abstract to the kids. And I'm just amazed. They come to first grade with such a strong number bond. Like, they know all the ways to make 5 and 4 and 3. So coming in with that, you know, setting that in kindergarten, that's fantastic, I think, at their age, that they can do all of this.
Thank you.
Thanks, kids, for coming. It's really brave to be up in front of a big group like this at any age, but first grade can be overwhelming. So thanks a lot, and great job. I hope you got some trick-or-treat candy. I do have a question with regard to Eureka Math. I know we switched to it a couple of years ago. Maybe somebody can discuss how it's going, how it's different, and how effective it's been since it's been implemented.
This is our 3rd year of implementation, and just speaking kind of broadly about the entire school, it's gone really well. Our scores are really solid, so we've been excited to see strong scores even increasing. So that's one indicator. Another indicator is our kids really love math. So when I ask kids what their favorite part of the day is or what they're working on, they're very excited to talk about math and what they're doing. It's also really exciting, and like you saw today, how they could talk through pieces, but if you do a classroom visit and you ask students what they're working on in math, they can really talk through it. So they don't just say the numbers and what the answer is. but if you say, tell me how you got that, or how are you thinking about that, or how do you know that you're right, they can really talk through those pieces. So that's exciting to see that depth of understanding that the first grade team alluded to. I see that across the board in classroom visits and talking with kids.
And I know the math program that we had before this, like everyday math, we didn't even touch on subtraction until the very end of the year. And so it was like foreign. And it seems so obvious that they're related, but we just didn't. And this just builds that basis so well. It's like we're not just delving into like a bunch of things and not doing it well. We're like really digging in and just working at so many different ways, giving them so many different strategies to go from, that we're teaching them to be mathematicians, not just
Memorize.
yeah. So I feel like, you know, I've seen a lot of math pros come and go, and I feel like this is a really good one. I think it's
Great, thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you, Dr. Mowbray, first grade teachers and first grade students. There's a reason we do this first thing. It's so that you don't have to stay and attend the meeting if you don't like to. You are welcome to stay, but feel free not to, if you like.
Thank you.
Let's move on to community comment. Participants under this agenda item must be residents of the Franklin Public School District or parents, guardians of Franklin Public School District students, and must limit their statements to 3 minutes, with a maximum of 15 minutes for any and all comment. If the community comment is related to an agenda item, the board may respond to that comment either at the end of the community comment session or during the discussion of that agenda item. Gesundheit. The board may not discuss a comment or question that does not relate to an agenda item per Board Administrative Rules 8300. We have one person that signed up today, Michelle Winke. Michelle, I hope I don't say your name wrong every other time.
No, you're fine. All right. So I wasn't going to speak today, well, big shocker, but then I saw Southwood Glen was on here, and I have a few things to say about what we just saw from those kids. First of all, I was totally impressed with those kids' handwriting, because that's last time I showed you my kids' handwriting, and so I did a little research back at home, and I save a lot of stuff, and I was able to find my daughter's first grade stuff, and her penmanship was legible. It was maybe not as great as those kids, but it was much better. It has decreased over the years. I went from kindergarten up to 4th grade, and it's just awful. A couple of the things that those teachers had spoke about, and let me tell you, I love Mrs. Ludwig, I love Mrs. Stack. They took care of all 3 of my kids. Love them, nothing bad to say about them at all. They loved my kids. But like right now, my daughter's in 5th grade at homeschool, and she cannot divide, she cannot multiply. She can sit there and cry doing problems today. She just had like 20, it was 19 divided by like 642 or something like that. And she couldn't do this. She couldn't figure out how to do this, and she was going 16 plus 16 plus 16 to see how many times it would go into like whatever it was, like 172 or whatever it was. I don't even know what the problem was. She couldn't even think to go, oh, I should like look at that number, like if it was 19, look at it as 20. How many times would 20 go into, 142? She couldn't even get that concept through her head. And this is 5th grade. The efficiency of this math program is not there either. She's in 5th grade. She will go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 marks at times. And I'm like, Molly, at least just write 9 if she's doing something. She can't understand that. She keeps marking, and it takes her, today she had 6 math problems, and I think it took her a half hour. These are just long division and long multiplication, 3 of each. And it took her a half hour to do these. And she sat there and cried. They talk about how these going forward, these aren't scary to look at math problems like word problems. And one of the teachers said, then they're not scared of them. My kids hate them. And they've been at Southwood Glen in the Franklin district doing this math curriculum for a combination of 13 years of all my kids. And my two younger ones are the ones that are struggling the most. They cannot read a word problem and make sense out of it. I sit there and have to handhold them to walk through things. And I look through specifically my daughter's grades, again, from kindergarten on through math and literacy. She had never gotten lower than a 3. She had 3s, 3.5s, and 4s from kindergarten to 4th grade. She has been failed by Franklin Public Schools. She has been. And you guys have spoken and said if a kid is behind by 3rd grade, they will never catch up. I had to quit my job. I have to stay home with my kids, which I am so grateful that I was able to do that this year, because I don't want my kids to fall back, and Franklin schools are not bringing them up to speed. I don't know if they'll ever be up to speed. And these are my two younger kids. My older child is a different story, but my younger two have been failed by this school. And that's what I just have to say, that this math program is not good for these kids. It is not efficient. It is not something that is allowing the kids to do math quickly. So that is why my daughter is taking a half hour to do 6 math problems, because she doesn't know 9 times 6. She doesn't know 4 times 7. We are still up to 6s on her multiplication, and she can't even do a sprint that has 30 problems on it in 1 minute from 0s to 6s, because there is no speed. I have been homeschooling these kids for 2 months now. I do see progress, but it's little progress, but it's good progress. I don't know where she'll be. I don't know where my younger one will be. But Franklin School has failed my kids. And that is it, so thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Item 6, consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, school board announcements. Announcements by school board members. Going once, going twice. School board calendar. Board of Education workshop, Wednesday, November 10th, 2021, at the ECC at 6. Regular meeting that same night, November 10th at 7. And a regular Board of Education meeting Wednesday, December 8th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Item 9, District Administrator update. Dr. Miller, please.
Hey, good evening. Well, we're in full swing with our academic year. Next week actually starts the second quarter of the school year. So a quarter of the school year has already gone by. It's pretty unbelievable. At our elementary schools, we've had a number of run walks, which maybe you've heard or read about, that are sponsored by our PTOs and PTAs. I'd just like to share a little information about those, because a lot of effort goes into those by our parents and our staff. So Country Dale held its annual Cougar Run, and they run laps outside, and they seek sponsorships for how many laps that they've done, and I think that's still going on. Ben Franklin held their recent run walk to raise money, and to date they've raised over $17,000 for the school. Last week, Southwood Glen did their Leaping with the Lions fundraiser event, and the students completed 3,980 laps, or just about 497 miles. So that would be like the equivalent of going from Franklin, Wisconsin to Frankfort, Kentucky. So far, they've raised $9,413. And then Robinwood does the Robinwood Rush. But unfortunately, they had to hold the event in the gym this year. They couldn't do it outside, and students ran on average around 15 laps, and are currently collecting their pledges. And then Pleasant View is holding, for their fundraiser, the annual Knowledge-a-thon. Some of you in the past have participated in those, so I just want to point this out because, again, there's a lot of effort that goes in by our PTOs and PTAs to organize these events. The kids enjoy them, and it helps raise some funds for our schools. At Forest Park, our 8th grade girls basketball team is participating in a conference tournament right now. I think they're playing Muskego right now. So if they win, they advance to a championship game. 7th grade service learning class recently collected dog toys for the Wisconsin Humane Society. I thought that was a great service project, part of our stewardship core value there. And then the 8th grade service learning club did a penny wars and raised over $2,800 to be donated to the Women's Center, which I believe is in Waukesha. Franklin High School's really proud to present War of the Worlds, the Panic broadcast, as our fall play this year. And it's next week, November 3rd through the 6th. So I think you can still get tickets for that online. Senior Gabe Wheeler will be performing during at 4:30 at the Wisconsin School Music Association State Honors Concert, taking place this Thursday in Madison. So it was really a great honor. So congratulations to Gabe. We have a lot of great things happening at our high school athletics program. Our football team will be playing Oak Creek this Friday. That's going to be a real big game, and you have to buy a ticket online if you plan to attend that game. Our Franklin High School girls tennis team was featured last night on WTMJ for being the first Franklin High School girls team to make it to the state level competition. And you'll see that story is featured on our social media site. Congratulations to freshman, I think it's Kaide Usui, who won the individual state title. She's a freshman. And seniors Madeline Jobek and Carly Lehman came in third for doubles. The Franklin girls volleyball team and the Franklin boys soccer team earned regional championships this past Saturday. And both the girls and boys cross country teams qualified for the WIAA state team meet with outstanding performances in sectionals. So a lot of great things going on. Quarter of the year done. It makes me a little anxious. It's going way too fast, but I'm just really proud of all that's happening in Franklin. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Item 10, reports, presentations, and other school board business. Annual health report. Ms. O'Neill and Ms. Call, please.
Hello, everybody. Can you guys hear me okay?
Might be just a little bit closer, Lori.
I want to make sure you guys can
That's
hear
better.
me well.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
Okay. So as many of you know, I'm Lori O'Neill, and I'm the district nurse that covers the elementary schools and the rec department for the district. And I'm joined by Molly Call, the district nurse who covers Forest Park and the high school. We appreciate the opportunity to share with you tonight our annual health and nursing services report for the 2020-21 school year. And we hope you've been able to read the report. We have a few slides to present to you and want to speak briefly about some key pieces of the report, and then of course we'll allow you to ask questions at the end of our presentation. The Franklin Public Schools Nursing and Health Services team served a critical role in the 2020-21 academic year to bridge students' health and educational needs. The team is led by the two of us who are charged with the oversight of and accountability for the delivery and outcomes of student health services. The team is also made up of additional nursing personnel and non-nursing staff who are trained to complete tasks as delegated. Of note, this past year, our nursing team was expanded to assist with the increasing responsibilities of the health and nursing services team. We increased our substitute nurses, some of who took on specific roles and tasks, and we also shifted duties from key staff members to assist with the crucial and necessary work to ensure that the 2020-21 school year was successful. Direct and indirect nursing services were provided to all students to address the impact of students' health on their ability to learn. Additionally, interventions were put in place to support students with complex health concerns and/or chronic conditions that may interfere with their ability to engage in their academic experience in the same manner as their peers. Our team utilizes a specialized knowledge base focusing on various determinants of student health in order to function as leaders in the management of school-based policies and health practice, such as our medication policy and medication administration throughout the school day. As Molly will speak to a bit more shortly, specifically this past year, we were consulted extensively in the navigation of the COVID-19 pandemic. With an ultimate goal of keeping FPS students safe, well, and ready to learn as often as possible in 2020-21, the Health and Nursing Services team members worked tirelessly in partnership with building and district leaders and all district employees to have a positive impact on students' health and learning outcomes. Here are some of the most common health conditions in our district and their trend over the past few years. From the 2019-2020 to the past school year, 2020-21, we saw an increase in nearly all categories of chronic conditions reported to us by families. On a daily basis, the Health and Nursing Services team collaborates with staff across the district to provide daily support for students with a wide variety of conditions, some of which are listed on this table. The goal is to help students reach optimal levels of health while at school and minimize time spent outside the classroom by ensuring a safe learning environment and educating students and families while allowing and encouraging age-appropriate independence in the self-management of their condition. Specifically, our students with diabetes mellitus require a significant amount of support and clinical expertise. These students have at minimum one touch point with the health room staff daily at lunchtime to have their blood glucose evaluated and to receive variable dosing of insulin. Most of the students with diabetes visit the health room at additional times throughout the day for blood glucose monitoring and to be evaluated and treated when they are showing signs of high or low blood glucose levels. We train health room staff and ensure they are competent in the student's diabetes management plan and are in frequent communication with health room staff on how to appropriately and safely intervene for concerning blood glucose levels. We have frequent ongoing dialogue with families and community providers to ensure the best care is being provided for our students.
Communicable disease surveillance and management is a key function of the role of the health services team every year. And given the impact of the pandemic on our mission as a district, our team spent a significant portion of our time on efforts to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. In the summer of 2020, our team was incredibly busy assessing, evaluating, and sharing guidance from local, state, and national health organizations regarding the evidence-based and expert-guided public health interventions that would allow individuals to safely return to buildings. In collaboration with district leadership, the Reopening Doors plan was put into place for the return of staff and students for full-time, in-person learning while incorporating best health recommendations. To support the complex health surveillance and communication systems that were put into place to achieve in-person learning, in partnership with numerous district-level specialists, our casual or sub-nurse pool was expanded and provided with extensive training regarding not just COVID-19, but also public health guiding principles and internal data management platforms. As a nursing services team, our primary goal was to support in-person instruction delivery for all students and families who selected the option to do so without sacrificing our ability to maintain a safe learning environment for our staff and students. While it was essential that Franklin High School transitioned to a virtual learning platform for a period of time in November of 2020, due to a percent positive COVID-19 rate exceeding 3% of the total building population, with subsequent evidence of secondary transmission or disease spread at school, we are very proud to say that for the remainder of the 2020-21 school year, all buildings were able to deliver in-person instruction as initially intended, 5 days a week, while incorporating a multi-layered approach to decrease the spread of COVID-19. Through our partnerships with the Southeast Wisconsin School Nurses Cohort and the Wisconsin Nurses Association, where we learned about the actions being taken by surrounding school districts and their outcomes, we know that we were able to achieve this goal in part due to sufficient nursing services staffing model in combination with health data tracking systems that had a crucial impact on our internal outcomes. Additionally, only 1.47% of students who were identified as close contacts to an individual who was contagious with COVID-19 in the school setting then subsequently tested positive for COVID-19. This is largely a result of our execution of our COVID-19 mitigation plan, including but not limited to masking, social distancing, building disinfection with high-quality air filtration systems, careful tracking of COVID-19 related absences with exclusion based on health department criteria, and efficient COVID-19 case investigation and contact tracing. Some of our overall data related to COVID-19 from the previous school year shown here strongly supports the need for our nursing team to have been committed to preventing the spread of COVID-19 in order to minimize the likelihood that students would need to miss school due to symptoms of illness. Our health and nursing services team, in partnership with office staff and health room staff, were responsible for the review of a median average of 26 new student absence records daily, with a high-end range of over 60 new records daily. Attendance review then commonly resulted in further consultations with families and/or public health specialists. I also can't emphasize enough the immense amount of collaboration and effort required not just from nursing services, but from all district employees, the Franklin Health Department, and our community health professional partners that we're all required to adapt in our roles to manage the needs of our students and staff and their health priorities. For example, with positive case notifications, our nursing team led internal case investigations to determine close contacts, partnered with a broader team to transition cohorts and classrooms to virtual learning as indicated, collaborated with the transportation coordinator to identify students who were exposed on district busing, and provided a great deal of support to students and families who were impacted. Similarly, nursing services were responsible for monitoring all individuals who were quarantined due to a COVID-19 exposure, supporting students and their families as they navigated being exposed to COVID-19, and assisting students who had chronic health conditions to manage their diseases in the context of an exposure to COVID. One of the final elements of our report that we would like to highlight for you tonight is our role in training our building's emergency response teams. In the 2020-21 school year, approximately 100 staff members across the district were trained to respond to medical emergencies prior to the start of the school year, and were provided with ongoing education throughout the year to support them in their roles as emergency response team members. We know that preparedness for an emergency event is critical to ensuring that individuals have the best chance of survival and a full recovery. We continued to have a considerable volume of emergency events at school throughout the previous school year, in which our team members needed to assess the individual's need, provide care based on the circumstances, and determine when escalation to a higher level of services was indicated. These charts, which are probably pretty hard to read, but I know you guys have this information, provide some visual information about the categories of medical emergencies for which community emergency medical service were called upon for further assistance, both looking at last year alone on the left, and then cumulative of the last 4 years on the right. Data regarding our events provides us with information regarding how we can continue to develop the skills of our response team members and how we might continuously prioritize for keeping our schools as safe as possible. Overall, our data continues to show that it is beneficial for our teams to be prepared to support the health needs of students during a wide variety of emergency circumstances. We appreciate the ongoing support and collaboration with the board throughout a school year that was particularly challenging to navigate, even for a school nursing team with a considerable amount of experience in pediatric nursing care and community health. We welcome any questions you may have about this information or about the report that was shared with you.
Anybody have any questions? Mrs. Witkowski,
Certainly a
please.
lot of information and, really tough year to get through and a lot of increased activity all over the place. How did you interact with the public health department? What was that interaction?
Can you repeat that, Linda? I'm sorry.
How did you interact with the public health department since this is a pandemic and they have a lead role in this? What was that interaction like
Certainly. Molly and I had daily meetings with Ms. Day, the director of the health department, in the beginning of the school year, where we would actually just hop on a video meeting and talk through things with her. We scaled the video meetings back a little bit as the year went on, but we were in email and or phone communication with her usually multiple times a day, weekends, evenings, mornings, to discuss new positive cases, questions we had with changing guidelines regarding the pandemic, next steps in anything we had with positive cases, with trends that we were seeing. So we worked very closely with Ms. Day in addition to many people in the health department and their contact tracers.
We did, I mentioned the Southeast Wisconsin Nurses Group. That was a group that started prior to the start of the school year last year, so that school nurses from around the area could all get a feel for how are you guys going to implement these guidelines, how are you going to track your attendance and absence rates. And through that, the Waukesha County, it was a lot of Waukesha County schools, and their health department actually started to join that. I think they use it as a bit of we have the luxury of having our own city health department, which has been amazing. They are all sharing one county health department, which is a challenge for them. But we did get to hear a little bit of a broader perspective from not just the Franklin Health Department, but health departments covering other districts as well.
And how much of this continues then this year? Everything is in place and continues then this year?
We still have daily communication with Ms. Day at the health department.
And just a quick funding question, Jim. So we have extra substitute nurses, and are we getting federal funds to cover those? Is that how we're funding that?
Yes, excuse me. Yes, we're getting federal funds for additional costs due to COVID, and this would be one of them.
There's some positions tied to that funding that would eventually.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
What do we expect? Well, first of all, thank you very much for all that you do, but this last year was, we came to you in the summer before the 2021 school year and asked you to do something that seemed impossible at the time, get our kids in school. And you, along with the administration, managed to do that. Thank you. Your hard work last year was incredible, and we all saw how hard you worked. Where are we going with, I see the quarantine rate of kids getting COVID after quarantine is less than 2%. I don't know what the numbers are for this year, but what is Ms. Day saying about quarantine going forward, heading into the future? I know the kids in elementary schools are masked, and I don't know. I don't quite understand what their quarantine situation is. But what's happening with that going forward?
So at this time, we follow under the guidance of the Franklin Health Department, we follow the Wisconsin Department of Health Services recommendations regarding school criteria for how to apply quarantine. So the quarantine piece actually comes from the health department, and our directive is to ensure that students aren't in school when they're quarantined. Currently, and the kind of change that happened over the summer that came from DHS and DPI was that when universal masking is in place in a school setting, they would support contact tracing on an individual who is potentially contagious at a distance of 3 feet as opposed to 6 feet. So we also, since the start of last year, and you guys are likely aware of this, we were quarantining individuals for 14 days after an exposure. Again, with the guidance of the Department of Health for the state, that's been decreased. So you kind of get a default of a shortened option of 10 days. And that did start during the school year last year. Individuals who are tested and receive a negative test at a certain time frame can have a decreased quarantine time even more of 7 days. And we anticipate that, Ms. Day is in very frequent communication with state public health leaders and other health departments to determine if there's ways that we can, going forward, change that in any way. And as soon as that recommendation would come out, she would be in touch with us about how we could apply that in district.
Are we and this is probably a question for her and not you, but there's a lot of districts around us that seem to have no quarantines, or are suggesting kids quarantine, but are not demanding it. 1.47% of kids got COVID that were quarantined. We'd like to do everything we can to keep kids in school. I guess I don't understand I don't understand the numbers. The numbers don't make sense to me.
No, I certainly appreciate that and know that we too know that many districts around us are not, they're recommending a quarantine or not enforcing it per the health department's recommendations. And at this point, we're continuing to follow that recommendation from the Franklin Health Department. And I think we will absolutely bring it up when we meet with our medical advisory team and Ms. Day and continue to have that conversation.
And our 1.4%, as I mentioned, we largely attribute to our success with all of our spread prevention measures. So the things like universal masking and social distancing and air filtration systems, we think that those things truly helped us to keep a low secondary spread rate. As I mentioned, when we saw that cases were increasing exponentially at the high school, secondary spread rate also increased exponentially. At one point, and I don't have that information with me at this moment, Dr. Cohen presented it last fall, I believe, when we looked at the total number of positive cases at the high school, when the cases overall were increasing, how many of them had been exposed at school prior to developing their own infection. So we are, looking forward to this year. This not relevant to last year, but we do continue to very closely watch all of our students who are quarantined who develops an infection, and watching that data to make sure that that is a measure of how well our mitigation measures are working this year.
Mr. Milzer, what should we expect the health team to look like in the future a year from now? We used to have 5 people, and now we have several more than that. Is it something I guess it's something that's cost neutral anyway, because the federal government is providing those funds, but what do we expect it to look like going forward?
Everyone asks me that.
My question.
I think it will look like this as long as we have COVID going as strongly as it does now. I think if we get over that and we're not seeing COVID cases, then these positions and these hours will go away.
And our staff is very well aware that we've hired during this time, that it's, a temporary position, and they've been incredibly flexible with us and, us with them as much as we can be. So we appreciate their willingness to work with us.
Are there things that your substitute staff are doing that are not COVID related? Have you been able to delegate some of your former everyday things to your
Yes.
substitute staff?
Yeah, absolutely. Because some of the pieces of, managing the COVID operations on a daily basis require the 2 of us. So definitely some of our staff are taking on different pieces, like following up with concussions and some different parts of what we would historically spend some of our time on.
Can you talk a little bit about your connections with, let's stop talking about COVID for a minute and talk about all the other things that our students are dealing with on a daily basis. How do you coordinate with, say, a kid's pediatrician? How often are you needing to communicate with the family and the pediatrician in terms of keeping those kids in school?
I would say that varies based on the student health condition. Lori mentioned diabetes. That's a great example of a chronic health condition that we are in very frequent communication with endocrine providers and especially for students who struggle more to learn the self-management of their disease. I would say that there are certain specialty providers and pediatricians who we have very frequent contact with. It's not really often a barrier for us if we need more information from a child specialty or primary care provider to develop a partnership with them.
And your office staff is trained to manage that, so you two and your substitutes, your other ancillary help, don't have to be at every school to attend to every single diabetic check or asthma inhaler or?
Correct. Yeah. Yes.
Does anybody else have further questions? Welcome, Dr. Khan.
Thank you. Sorry for being late. I was doing an emergency procedure, so.
So you also do student health education. Was that able to continue? I'm sure you were emphasized the hygiene side of it, but the cigarette use, the other substance use, did that kind of go on the side last year, or were you able to?
I can tell you that we didn't get to talk about as many non-COVID related things as we would have liked to. So we look forward to having the opportunity to speak to students a little bit more about various different topics once again this year.
We were able to engage some of our sub-nurses, I will say, especially at the middle school and high school level, where it's a little bit of I won't say it's an easier place to jump in. So, for example, there's a child development and healthcare course that Linda Kraus teaches at the high school that for nurses or CNAs, they're very eager to have somebody come and talk to them and talk about pediatric CPR and life-saving skills. So we were able to keep up some of those different teaching opportunities. We taught CPR to the health classes at Forest Park last year. So it's never, with students, I feel like it's never as much direct interaction as we would like, but we did have some touch points throughout the year still.
Do there seem like there are more emergency response situations now than there used to be 3 years ago or 5 years ago? It seems like it to me, but maybe that's because I hear about them all because I'm on the board.
Sure. So this is my 6th year, and I would say yes, there are more calls than there were when I started. I also think, our teams are very well versed in how to respond, and we encourage them to really call for help from, the team in the building, and certainly call us. But I feel like that potentially could correlate with some of the increase in some of the chronic diseases that we shared with you guys. Like we have more students now who have a seizure disorder than we did a handful of years ago.
You also know we're at the pre-session. Lori and I have the opportunity to talk to all employees about signs to watch for when they call for help. And we really see that all of our teachers and teaching staff do a great job of early recognition that something is wrong and having a student stay where they are and having the team come to them, which could also be part of the reason that we see them being utilized more.
And by calling more, then you're probably offering better care than sending a kid to the office and having them pass out in the hallway or something.
Right.
I just would like to thank you too for everything you do. There's very few people in the district who are responsible for every student, and these two ladies are responsible for the health of every student in this district and have knowledge and information and handle things very well. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
'21-22 employee handbook updates. Ms. Domers, please. Your first opportunity, and apparently you're quite tall. Oh, no.
So tonight I'm going to be walking you through just a few changes that we have made to the employee handbook for this year. You should have had access to kind of the update document as well as the full handbook that reflected those changes. So I'm just going to walk through them one by one. The initial one is just updating our Title IX contact for the district, which is now Dr. Moe. So that did change. The second one is an update to our bereavement leave. It's more of a clarification than anything else for employees. It's something that we had been doing but still getting a lot of questions about. So the change is now just a clarification that those bereavement leave days are to be used during a time when the employee is normally scheduled to work. So for example, if someone has a contract where they're not working during the summer, there's a death in the family during that summer period, we've had people asked to come back and take those bereavement days during during the fall or on the weekends. So it's just a clarification of when those days can be utilized. Number 3 on here is a more significant one because of a federal law update to the USERA leave that we offer for uniform services. It's an addition to to the previous law, really surrounding the offering of benefits and retirement benefits for those that go on the uniform services leave. You can see in there it discusses in the event that an employee goes out on the leave, they do have the option for up to 24 months to stay on the district's health insurance. They do pay the full cost of the premium, and we also can charge up to a 2% administrative fee for the administration of that plan. So they do have the option, and that leave in total, the health insurance is up to 24 months, but the leave in total can last up to 5 years to make them eligible for that reinstatement back in the district.
Do we have people that do use that?
I asked that question, and it sounds like it's not a leave that's significantly used. The district doesn't necessarily track those that are active in the service or veterans, so that's something we might look to do in the future, so we have a better pulse on that. The next one, I apologize, is actually page 59 instead of 58. So this is clarifying language surrounding unpaid leaves of absence. There was some very specific language previously in there about the length of time of the unpaid leave and how often it could be utilized. We felt that this was a little bit confusing for employees, and they had a little bit of a panic moment every now and then based on those guidelines. So we just changed it to be more general, and the process moving forward is that in the event that an employee does need some sort of unpaid leave of absence, that they would just talk to their supervisor as well as HR, and we would kind of discuss those options with them. The next one is a couple of different areas, and it's all related to language surrounding our health insurance. I want to mention that this is no changes to the health insurance, no changes to the plan. This is purely just an update of the language to be more in sync with our new plan structure versus our old plan structure. So it was never really updated in terms of, it refers a lot to the district wellness plan, which was a part of our old health insurance plan before we moved to self-funded. So that's just really an update of language to make it more clear for employees. And then the final one is an update for our hourly staff regarding personal days. We have been looking a lot at how to retain our employees and how to give them a better experience in the district. Historically, they have not been eligible to take any personal day or personal time that they're allotted or vacation time for 6 months of employment, which can be a little bit of a burden. That's a long time to go if you have an event planned or something that you'd like to attend or take off time off of work. So what we did do is that, keeping in mind that we want to be respectful of an employee probationary period, we moved the personal time can be used after 3 months of service, and then the vacation time remains at 6 months. This is also to help the district in general. We had some issues that we ran into based on employee start dates. If they, for example, started in October, they wouldn't be eligible for that time off until 6 months later, and then the district policy for some of those leaves is that you use it or you lose it. It's not necessarily full rollover. So we were having a lot of employees, if we hired a lot in October, which is very common for us, a lot of people taking off on the couple end months of school, which can be a little bit of a burden to the district to try and find subs during that time.
How many hourly staff do we have?
I will ask Mr. Millsner to help me with that.
Let's see. Be close to 200.
Which is food service?
Food service, custodial, educational assistants.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, oh no, that's it, just any other, I'm happy to take any other questions.
We also have questions with regards to the handbook.
So, with the bereavement of the immediate family members, it's 3 days. So if that happens in summer when they're off, they're not eligible to take the 3 days when the school starts, am I right?
No, unless, for example, if there was a delay in the service or a delay in the planning, they obviously could use it for those purposes if that delay happened. But the real point is to use that time when those events are occurring.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else have any questions? Thank you. Item C, 2021-22 staffing and budget. Ms. Dahmers and Mr. Milzer, please.
This is our third draft of the 2021-22 budget. The first draft in June included a lot of estimates at that point. In this final draft, we've received the amount of aid we'll get from the state. We have the enrollment counts complete, and we've updated the staffing information. Looking at enrollment, we had an additional 77 students over last year, and we're just about back to the 2019-20 level, only 2 students off. Open enrollment going out decreased by 1 student to 138, which is still about 40 students higher than it was in 2019-20. Open enrollment increased by 32 students due to really, I think, a large desire of people to get into the district. Usually we're not able to fill that many of our seats that we open up, and this time we were able to fill all of them. The open enrollment amounts for regular education student is $8,161. For a special education student, $13,013. And the overall net revenue for open enrollment is about $2.5 million. And then next we will do staffing.
Yeah, thank you. So the number that you have in this report is much more reflective of what the staff actually panned out to be with the fall starting up and running. Initially, the district had predicted a decrease of our staffing, I believe 0.66. And as you can see, we did have an increase of almost 3, so 2.99. A few things that I want to mention before I get into any sort of detail is that being new to the district, kind of getting a better sense of the evaluation of how the staffing should be pacing with the enrollment of our students. So Mr. Milzner and I have some plans to kind of get into depth with that to really get an understanding of how our enrollments are trending and tracking and how is that actually reflecting on our staffing. So we have some plans to go through that pretty significantly. As you can see, it does lay out by the different levels, kind of the increases and decreases that we've had as a difference over the previous school year. You can see that we have had some increases in our cross-categorical staff, just due to the increased needs of students at the different levels. And when we have students that move from from elementary to middle school and middle school to high school, those staff members don't necessarily follow them, but the students' needs don't go away. So we want to make sure that we're supporting them. So we did see an increase in the staffing for those areas more specifically. The other document that I do want to refer to is the additional turnover report that I provided to you. So as you can see, the district did have a pretty significant increase in our turnover of staff from the previous fiscal year. A couple of things. I think that the turnover from the previous year is not necessarily always the best comparative because I think it was a much different point in time. We were in obviously a much different state in the world in general, so people were staying a little bit more comfortable in the uncertainty. So I don't know if the staffing or the turnover for the previous year is necessarily as reflective of what it would have been in a normal year. The other thing I wanted to mention is that employees leave districts for a various number of reasons. The top 3 reasons for our staff leaving, at least 2 of those were consistent with what we have previously seen, which is relocation and moving. I think a couple of those might have been added for this previous year because people were not comfortable moving. It was a plan that they had, but they held off because of COVID. So once things opened up a little bit more, they were comfortable making those moves. And the other one that was a little bit kind of a interesting one to add is those that left the district or teaching due to COVID. They weren't comfortable coming back and they decided that it was no longer the right profession for them. And then the career change piece as well. I think that this was also something really interesting in reading all of the statistics lately where a lot of people are reevaluating because there are a lot of opportunities. And if they've ever wanted the opportunity to move into something completely different than what they are doing, now is the time to do that. So we did see an uptick in those that were interested in career changes altogether and wanted to leave teaching. So I don't know if Mr. Milsner wants to continue, or I'm happy to take questions about that piece.
Sure, we can take questions on
Okay,
that piece
yeah.
as long as we're here.
I have a question on the staffing.
Mhm.
As far as district-wide support, I see we're adding 2.5 interventionists. We previously had 4, now we have 6.5. Those are not really student-driven. What are the justifications for those?
Yeah, so I'll ask Mrs. Cody to help me with that because she's more familiar with that change.
I'm sorry, Ms. Witkowski. Ms. Witkowski, can you just repeat the last part of your question? I know you were asking about interventionists.
Yes, I don't believe they're student-driven, so what is the basis for the additional staffing?
So interventionists are the staff members who do work with students who become eligible to receive additional support. So they really focus on literacy and math, and they work directly with students. So I do think we saw a bit of an increase in the needs as far as closing the gaps because of some of the inconsistency due to COVID. So when we had the school closure, again, things changed there. And then when we came back, we've had, again, some inconsistency in terms of, if students were quarantined for a period of time and then they came back. And so they may have been impacted by a lot of different things. But the job, I'm sorry, my mask is bothering me here. The role of the interventionist is really working directly with students and also working with teachers, even helping them develop plans for working with those students in their classrooms as well.
Is there special federal dollars, Jim, associated with these positions?
If we look at them and the need for the positions as being greater due to COVID, then they would fall under that category, yes. Not the original ones necessarily, but these.
That's how the budget's structured?
Right. That's what we're looking at.
Are these positions that'll stay then, for the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years? Or is this something that's this year to kind of help bridging those gaps as kids are coming back? And
So some of this has to do with title funding and just proportionality. I mean, so as we're reviewing our data, that's where we're determining even how to provide different levels of support for students. So even some of this last year, we had some staff members who did do some of this work already, but they were also the same staff members who were supporting a virtual classroom. So that the providing those interventions may not have just been under this interventionist category, but they were doing that work. So I'd love to say we'd be reducing this. That would mean we were doing a really good job of closing the gaps for our students. So, but we do look at the data on a regular basis, like each year, to see what those needs are.
Are they in an IEP, these services?
They are not part of that, no. So this is prior to a student being identified as needing services. So this is.
It seems as if we were talking about getting away from direct intervention. And this seems like we're going back toward it. I know we specifically talked with this about this in a couple of our workshops, and how having kids go away different interventionists, and
Right.
maybe this is not what this is, but
You're-
it seems like it is.
Yeah, I'm impressed that you remember that. Yes.
I listen when you talk, Ms. Cody.
Yes. So that is the case. And right now, again, how this role is servicing students is we do have the need for direct supports. And the way they're providing those interventions, it is less about pulling the student out. And it is more about how we are meeting that need within the context of that universal learning. But we're still shifting as a system. So eventually those interventionists could be more part of those planning teams, the co-serving teams that we learned about and spoke about that previously. So yes, I mean, I agree with you that we don't want to be pulling students out.
There are tiers of interventions, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. I think you've heard of this before. So when you're working with an interventionist, you're in a tier 3 intervention, meaning we've done tier 1, we've done tier 2, and now we're at tier 3. So it's not something we take lightly.
No.
We really try to make sure that we're meeting the kids' needs without moving to that tier 3. And then ultimately trying to meet their needs before they're identified for special ed, because the goal is not to have more and more children identified as having a disability because they've fallen behind.
And again, a couple of these interventionists do serve, like they work in the classroom and they are modeling different strategies alongside the teacher. So again, we can avoid the need for that tier 3 intervention.
What is our way of objectively deciding if this new outlay of funds, I mean, it's 3 interventionists, if this has made our district better, or if this is worth the cost?
Well, we do monitor, I mean, I can let others speak as well, but we do monitor progress every 6 to 8 weeks, and we have specific data that we monitor across the district. So we're looking at it systematically. And I mean, it's on a regular basis. So, and we're following those students as they progress through the system. So we meet as a full district systems of support team 3 times a year, but then in each building, it's every 6 to 8 weeks. And so, I mean, we do review data, along the way. And so that's one way that we look at it.
How many students are we touching with this additional needs? How
Um,
many more are we working with?
Well, one interventionist could be working with between 15 and 20 students, but it's not just about, that would be like tier 3. So that highest level of intervention, but again, they're also working with teachers to plan before a student would get to tier 3. So tier 2, when we know that we see some needs, they would come alongside the teacher and look at the assessment, the evidence of learning that we have, and then work with the teacher to try to meet those needs in a more intensive manner, like in the classroom, in that universal instruction. So we don't have numbers in terms of maybe some of that planning, but I don't have that off the top of my head. But the tier 3, it's anywhere between 10 and 20 students.
But an interventionist isn't only interacting with those 10 or 20 students.
Correct.
An interventionist in a building might be impacting every student in that building by way of interacting and coaching with the classroom teachers. Is
Yeah,
that
they're
fair
part of that
assessment?
planning. Thank you, Ann. Yeah. So, I mean, they're part of that planning going into that classroom. So it's beyond just that direct contact time with students.
And how are we expecting to deploy this increase? 2.5 across the district. How are they deployed?
So they have home schools where they're assigned, and then they each have specific areas. So we have math. We have some that are designated to focus on math, and some are literacy. And so every 6 to 8 weeks, we meet with teams at each building, and then we look at all that data collectively, and then we prioritize student needs, and then we deploy those interventionists based on those needs. So, for example, Nicole Cassidy's home school is Ben Franklin, so she would prioritize, like, be the one to work with Ben Franklin, but then she might also pick up 4 students at Robinwood. So they come together as a team once we see all the needs across the district. And then they'll follow progress, and we get together again at 8 weeks, and then that might shift based on student progress. So that's how they're deployed, is based on the needs.
And these are already hired in place?
What was that?
These are already hired and in place?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I have a question also on technology, which has increased 0.79. What are we adding for technology support?
That's an excellent question. In terms of the technology support, I don't know if anybody else at the table, I don't know specifics of this particular role yet. I'm still learning all the different pieces. But if no one can speak to that, I'm happy to get back to you on that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Get back to me. Thank you.
We also have any staffing related, sorry, Mrs. Sapersky, please.
I was just going to go back to the question that we had about the resignations and kind of, obviously, we've all lived through a pandemic. There are a lot of reasons why people might leave, but looking, even just at our 2018-19 versus 2021, there still was a pretty significant jump this last year versus previous years. Was there any other data as people left, say last year, to help us understand why people would leave? If people were leaving to go to a different district, do we ask those staff members, what is it about this other district that you're going to find that's better than what you have here in Franklin? And then are we taking any of that information and trying to implement it? I wonder, what could we do to keep our teachers? It feels like, and maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like it'd be better to keep our teachers and invest in them than to continually have to fill these roles.
Yeah, absolutely. So the exit survey that we normally send out to our employees that are choosing to leave, I just want to mention, this is after they've already given their resignation, and then I'll kind of address prior to that. It is much more extensive. It hasn't been done consistently throughout the past couple of years, so it's hard to compare apples to apples in terms of the questions. But the more recent one we have does ask, first off, what drew you to want to work in Franklin? And then it goes into, can you tell us a little bit why you're specifically leaving? And then it's a choice of 15 different things that get really specific. So it says, are you moving to a place that has better benefits, a place that has better pay? Are you relocating? Are you changing careers? So the reasoning is much more specific than what we've had in the past and been able to calculate. So we can kind of target those specific things, especially if they're pieces that help us retain our employees. And then prior to, retention should be happening before you actually have someone come up to you and say, I'm ready to leave my position. So moving forward, there's a couple of pieces that I'd like to explore. Some conversations, all of our principals and our supervisors do rounding conversations. So to really ask the employees on a regular basis, what's working for you, what's not working for you, and what can we do to create a better working environment for you. And then we collect all of that data, and we would kind of identify different trends for what are our employees telling us, and what are they needing to make sure that they are happy and healthy in the work environment, as well as taking the trends from our employee engagement survey. So we do send out a really large survey on a regular basis once a year. And then moving forward, we're going to kind of do a pulse survey as well twice a year with specific questions that we historically have not trended as well on as other questions, to also, kind of keep our employees engaged, and we want to hear from them as often as we can. And then really asking them, if we find that one particular area we are, not as high as we'd like to be in, having those honest conversations with employees and saying, You know, while they may not specifically have rated this low, you know, you mentioned that you want to have better communication. Tell me where we're missing the mark, because we can make assumptions about what our employees want to hear based on the data, but only our employees can actually tell us what they need. So being a little bit more proactive rather than reactive, I think, is important moving forward.
Thank you.
Going back, I can answer the technology question. I just had to think about it a minute. So we have 2 employees that provide instructional technology support. Mr. Brandis across the street, who became the associate principal, was doing that last year, and he was responsible for working with teachers K through 8 in integrating technology into their instruction, basically kind of helping them use technology in their teaching. And then Miss Adams was 50% at the high school, and we bumped her up to either 0.7 or 0.79. I'm not quite sure, but we gave her a bit more time to provide that support at the high school level. So that's what those positions are.
Does it have something to do with more need for technology with the
Like the Google Classroom?
yes.
Yeah, like how do you use Google Classroom is a perfect example of what they've spent a lot of time on. We're helping teachers with these individuals.
Can I ask a question then? Also in world language, we have our Spanish shows as being down 1.58 of an FTE. Has our Spanish enrollment changed, or is that where we have our virtual students, and what's our plan for that?
So I think that number can be a little deceiving. I will tell you, if you ask any HR director at any K through 12 school in Wisconsin, they'll say that Spanish teachers are extremely difficult to find right now. They are just few and far between. So I don't believe that that's necessarily a reflection on our interest in Spanish by those students. We do have several Spanish classes that are actually running virtually. So they are still getting that experience and that education. They're just not through direct employees of Franklin.
Do we have, I mean, what is the, I guess, then what is the cost of having the virtual program versus having an actual teacher? Obviously, we can't just snap our fingers and make a teacher appear, but is there a significant cost difference there? And then also, is there, and this is probably not a question for right now, but how are we checking their achievement in terms of being a virtual student versus an in-person student for Spanish classes?
I can jump in.
Sorry.
So as far as the cost goes, you know, obviously it would cost less to pay for virtual learning for a student, but in that Spanish classroom, we have an educational assistant who speaks Spanish full-time, well, with them, right? So we're actually...
The educational assistant is a native speaker or has Spanish language training?
She used to teach Spanish.
Oh, okay.
But she doesn't want to teach, she wasn't, yeah. So anyway, we have an employee with the students while they're online virtually. So I don't know the exact numbers. I could work with Mr. Milzer and we could give those to you, but it's not like we're saving a lot of money not having a teacher with those
Or
classes.
but we're not spending more money by needing to have a virtual
No,
platform?
no, I mean, you could verify that, but I don't believe so, no. I'm sorry if I answered in a roundabout way, but we're doing our best. And yes, we have to absolutely monitor the achievement of those students, and we're doing that at the high school.
I also think it's important to remember that the Spanish, I'll call it the Spanish situation, is something that, the foreign language situation is something that was in turmoil for the last year. We had an issue, we had several issues last year, if people recall. But I feel like that's being forwarded and being worked on, and at some point, you can't get a good teacher in October for the school year, because anybody you would hire wouldn't be worth hiring. So, you know, maybe this is something that's, instead of taking, the summer is going to take
We actually,
the entire school year
Yeah,
and be a situation that we can be, that we can move forward with.
we actually did a remarkable job filling a lot of vacancies in Spanish, and it's just these few classes that aren't, that are virtual. but we did it, and things are going fine with those teachers. So, but yeah, it was a very difficult situation. I agree, but
I'm
feel
intrigued
we're-
by the arrangement and the blended arrangement of resources,
Mhm.
and I'd be excited to hear how the students are doing. They might like it. I don't know. You know, you can learn language on your phone, I guess. Not that that's the same thing, but it is available. So,
Other questions for, as far as staffing goes on the budget? All right, please continue, Mr. Milzer.
I just want to,
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I just recalled that. Did you say that our first version had an increase of staff, or I think it was decreasing, wasn't it, Jim? Our first,
I think it had a decrease because we weren't planning on as many students as we have. Is that right?
Yeah, we had planned on 93 fewer students based on the results of the survey in April. And then we came out with our alternate plan with some virtual learning, made some changes, and people just made their decisions, and we ended up having 77 more students rather than 93 less.
well, we only reduced, the first version, with all those less students only decreased staffing 0.62. Now the increase that we got really puts us at the same level of pre-COVID, and we're adding 3 positions. Although I understand most of these positions are cross-categorical, interventionist, so not really in the classroom. It doesn't seem like that to me. But I just want to be clear that, you know, we have more students, but not really that many more in relation to the staffing that we're adding. But I'm okay with where we're adding it, given the impacts of COVID, and again, like to see how performance happens a year from now, where we're at. So I just wanted to clarify the different versions of where we're at.
Thank you. Please.
In revenue, the district will receive about $2.3 million more in equalization aid than last year. There was no increase in the revenue limit per student, so this lowers property tax amount on a per student basis. Due to the increase in students over last year, our revenue limit expanded somewhat, and our general fund tax levy is down $1.7 million. We've budgeted $1.5 million in elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds, which are the ones that help with COVID. In private school voucher payments, the state has included $632,832 for private schools in our revenue limit, which we collect and the state takes away, which sounds about right.
How's that compare to last year?
It's up about $80,000, I want to say. So doing some proactive planning here, the legislators that came up with putting more money into education but not increasing the revenue limit realized that property taxes would go down because of that. However, they also said at the same time they thought property taxes would probably increase in 2 years because they may not be able to sustain the funding, and they would have to give an increase at that point because they're asking us to rely on our federal funds right now. And as taxpayers, we all like property tax decreases. Those are always good. But we also know that taxpayers don't like kind of that tax roller coaster where it goes down and then it goes up and it goes down and up. They'd like it to be a little more flat. So to provide the average property tax reduction from what the state did and smooth out the future increases, as well as reduce the cost of our next referendum, this budget sets aside additional debt service dollars, as well as significantly reducing the general fund tax levy. It's somewhat similar to 2007, when we managed the tax levy to create a drop in our debt payments that allowed the district to be able to do $50 million roughly of construction with no tax increase. And unfortunately, the referendum for that new high school didn't pass, but we were set up for that at the time. And that's the kind of forward planning we're doing with this budget. In this budget, we estimate that school property taxes will go down by $34 per $100,000 of property value. So for a $300,000 home, for example, the taxes would go down $102. It could be more than that based on the value of the city, but that's what we're projecting with no increase in value. And over the last 5 years, if we look at the school property taxes, they've decreased by 0.7%, including this budget. We look at the Capital Improvement Trust Fund. We've just about completed the renovation of the high school athletic entrance for safety and appearance. And we still have yet to do the turf on the baseball and softball fields to maximize that use. That we thought we would be able to do that this fall, but the city didn't approve it yet, so that's pushed off to next summer.
The project's still in this budget though, correct?
Project's still in the budget.
Okay.
And we're hoping to get it underway as soon as possible in the summer. So overall, this is an excellent budget for Franklin Public Schools. It proactively lays out the best course of action for the students' education, moves the coherence plan forward, includes the programs we've talked about and the projects in the first draft, covers all of our COVID-related expenses, and it does all of that with a tax decrease. So tonight we would need the board to adopt the budget so that we can file our tax forms with the city and the state.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Milzer?
I would like to make a motion to reduce the debt service levy to the same amount that was in the original draft that you provided, Jim. Or a reduction of 1.2 million, is that correct? Right, the number?
Sounds right. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then I think the taxpayers, I'd like to make that motion to reduce debt service to the previous version.
Does anybody want to second that motion? Or is there a second to that motion? All right, does anybody, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the budget?
So moved.
Second.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
I do want to state that I think by keeping the budget as it is, we are over levying, and that this money is the taxpayers' money. If they want to save that money, they should be saving it in their budget and not in this budget. So I will not be supporting this budget as it is.
Or is it possible, we've talked in the past about having some sort of plan going forward. And we've done a lot of this with the building and maintenance department. For cost certainty, we've laid out tables for HVAC and roofing and that sort of thing. There are a number of new subdivisions going in town, and we've bought land, and it's likely that we'll need a new elementary school sooner than later. There are other things that we have that we're going to need referendum for at some point, although it'd be nice to have less of a referendum. Is it possible to come up with some sort of a plan for cost certainty for building that we are going to require, so that when we change, and these were estimates before, from 4.78 to an increase of 1.2 million that Mrs. Witkowski is talking about, can we address how that is, how that was an estimate before and what it looks like now and what that money would be? Address her question, I guess, is her response.
It's a policy question. It's not anything to do with the numbers. Our levy repayment schedule is set. There's no need. We increased levy and debt service last year so that we could refinance, and we did that. And Jim has built that savings going forward in future budgets. So that money will build to fund balance as we go. We do not need to tax our taxpayers this 1.2 million. It's just going to be sitting in a fund for some project in the future. We don't know when that's going to happen. And the decision to build that building should be with those future taxpayers that will be paying for that. Why am I as a taxpayer paying for that now? You're taxing me to pay for a building that's not even there. The state put together this funding plan, and Jim, you may not, yes, it's political, you don't know how they're going to put it together, but they're changing the funding relationship. And it's a reset. We're not going to get this opportunity to reset our levy in the future. This is a unique opportunity. We should do it. There are going to be increases, yes, but there will be increases anyway. We're not going to get an opportunity to reduce levy 1.2 million again. It's not going to be this easy.
By doing
And
this,
it's
you
that
have,
policy that's why I'm not supporting it. I'm not levying for something we don't need. And if nobody else agrees with that, well, let's just vote and move on. You don't want me talking forever.
You know, the point which Linda is bringing up is important, but at the same time, I think, how do we balance, from Jim's perspective, not having a roller coaster for a taxpayer? So what will an individual taxpayer prefer? Seeing savings this year? Everybody likes saving, no doubt in that. But at the same time, then all of a sudden next year they see a bump. So is it a way where we prepare ourselves, but also in a moderate way in which the taxpayers don't feel, if the taxes go up next year with the levy, they don't feel that much. At the same time, we are not saving too much. So there is a kind of a balance, because when you go to the store and you see $1.99 for 99 cents, you feel that you have got $1 off. You are happy with it. When you go to the store, $1.99, you're $1.49, you're still happy with that because you're still getting 50 cents. So the consumer mentality is they want to see savings. At the same time, if the $1.99 goes to $2.99, they'll be very upset at that. So how do we balance, and not Linda's point of view that why do we kind of saving that money right now, kind of putting up right now that 1.2 million right now, if we can, especially with the state regulation right now, we have an opportunity, but at the same time, the thing is that how do we prepare in the future, So what is, anybody has input on that? So it's a difficult thing to, because, we want to do the right thing, but not living the taxing, because right now, the taxpayer, which is this year right now here, must not be paying for 5 years down the road. At the same time, we want to ensure that it's not a big setback to the people who are planning.
I guess I'm hearing two different things. I think I heard Jim say we're going to levy this and put it away in a fund to build a new high school. But the way you're
No,
describing
that's
it.
not what he said.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
He was talking about 2007 when that happened. He was
But we
talking about
are-
a similar situation to this that we don't want to get into.
So we're going to have this savings that we're going to kind of nip away at to control the levy increase. Am I characterizing that correctly?
In 2 years, if the levy was going to increase, you could use this to smooth that out as well, yes.
Why, I don't understand why 2 years. Why not next year?
That's when the next biennium starts. And if the legislators are saying this year that they expect an increase in taxes at that point, they're indicating that they don't think they can fund $408 million again into education. So that would be an automatic tax increase, as well as the tax increase for the additional revenue that they would have to give us to catch up for 2 years of not giving us an increase and making us rely on federal dollars to get by.
They gave us an increase. What do you mean they didn't give us an increase this year? You
They
got
didn't-
2.8 million in equalization aid, 2.3 million in equalization, and I don't understand what you just said.
We can't spend that on education.
We are spending it on education. We're spending less levy, and we're spending more state dollars.
No, it's flowing right through our revenue limit formula and lowering taxes.
That's what I'm saying. We're spending it on education. The money that they're giving us, we're spending on education. We're spending less tax levy dollars because we're using more state dollars. The funding share has shifted. And the state has also squirreled away money.
The state isn't giving us any more money, though. The money they're giving us lowers taxes. It can't lower taxes and give us more money to spend.
Does anybody else understand this? I don't understand what you're saying.
There's a percentage shift there, but all indications from the state are that they will not be able to fund that in 2 years, which then slams that right back onto the tax levy, and all of a sudden we have a large increase, plus our revenue limit just has to expand at that point, and that's also going to increase the levy. So the levy is going to go up quite a bit, most likely, and that will not make people happy. And there's no explaining that at that point. Then we're all bad people, and the legislators will only say that they gave us $408 million, and they're not sure why this is happening.
I just think it's important to remember that our focus is on doing what is best for both our current but also our future students. And I feel like what the budget as it's presented does is kind of keeps us in that balance of, certainly funding for our students now, but also giving us a little bit of, I don't want to say maybe insurance for the future. And I think especially if anything, this last couple of years here now has taught us that we have to be in a position where we can respond to the unexpected. Nobody thought that we would have a pandemic. We did, we still do. But because of sound financial planning through the district over many, many years, thank you, Mr. Milner, we were able to weather that storm. We didn't, our boat didn't crash in the storm. And I think, at least looking at this budget and the way I understand it and from having conversations, I think this sets us up well for, having a solid budget now, having a solid budget into the future, taxpayers getting a little bit of a, decrease now. And I feel like it's a good overall investment in our students, which is then an investment in our community. And that's.
I think to Dr. Khan's question as well, I think, the balancing act you're talking about, I think that's what Mr. Mills is trying to give us.
We don't ever get this opportunity to reduce levy that we have right here.
We've
We're
reduced the
leaving
levy
money
3
on the
years in a
table.
row.
What about the taxpayer?
We've
What about
reduced the
the
tax
fixed-
levy.
what about the retired
We've
people?
reduced the tax levy 3 years in a row.
We've reduced it? Show me the numbers.
If I can just speak to development a little bit. So there's a subdivision that came in on 51st and Putes. And if you recall, we added 3 classrooms to Southwood Glen. And that's not as big as some of the developments that are being discussed. Not approved, but being discussed. One that's being discussed is like 300 lots. So this district will need another elementary school. I just don't know when yet. We're trying to work with the city, learn more about that. But I'd just like you to, think about 3 classrooms to Southwood Glen for that small subdivision on 51st. So, and these things take off, they take off quickly. So we want to have as much money as possible to say to the taxpayers, we save this much, but we need this much from you. And that's what Mr. Milzer's continuously done with our budgeting over the years.
And we
So.
couldn't predict a pandemic, but we can predict the need for a new school. And so whatever we can do, the same way, when you're, a young family and you want to buy your first house, you're going to save your, for your mortgage for that first down payment on your house, or you want to get your first car when you have your high school job and you're going to save for that kind of down payment. We know we're going to need this school. It's a great problem for Franklin to have. We have people who want to come here and build houses and raise their families. That's a great problem. But we need to prepare for that, and we should be doing
So
what we
we're
can.
doing this to save for a new school.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded. Do we need a voice vote for this, Mrs. Larson?
Yes, because it's money.
Roll call, please. Sorry.
Mrs. Witkowski?
No.
Mr. Alexandrovich?
Yes.
Mrs. Sapersky?
Yes.
Dr. Khan?
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Motion passes
Thank you.
5-1.
Item D, District Administrator Goals. Dr. Miller, please.
Okay, I'd like to just take a few minutes to highlight the document that you've received, which outlines my goals for this school year. So my primary goal as a superintendent here is to ensure that we actually meet the goals of our coherence plan that guides our work to become a better place to work, a better place to learn, and part of a better community. So my goals actually fall into 3 categories. The first is to meet the annual goals of the coherence plan for this year. The second is to increase staff ratings regarding my work performance. And then the sub-areas related to that, which we measure, is our employees receiving communication that matters. I need to ensure that teachers see a connection between their work and the goals of the coherence plan. And I need to ensure that our staff feel safe at work, that this is a safe place to work, be, and work. And then my third category that I focus on is just receiving an overall rating of highly effective as a district administrator based on the professional practice rubric that the board uses to evaluate my performance. So just recapping the 4 main areas of our annual coherence plan for this year that have my attention and the attention of everyone else, hopefully, is that we will use data and research to plan professional development that results in high-impact actions that positively influence staff and students' learning. The second is conduct a root cause analysis of achievement and opportunity gaps to create steps and to close those gaps. The third is to provide professional development and customer service, collect data, and implement responsive actions. And the fourth is deploy the communications that utilize key messages and foster pride in the school. So kind of in a nutshell, those are the 4 main areas of the coherence plan this year that we are setting out to achieve. So my goal, my job, is to make sure we do that. My specific tactics or strategies to do that include I'll be working with Dr. Moe quite a bit. Her job is Assistant Superintendent of Continuous Improvement and oversight of the coherence plan and the actual work that's done in our buildings to achieve those goals. So I'll be working very closely with her on that. I'll be delegating leadership to create new plans as needed for things throughout the district. I'll ensure that the goals are aligned and research is used in decision-making. I'll ensure that the communication plan refresh is implemented, and then I will meet regularly with our leaders and influence their leadership skills through evaluation. My second goal has to do with increasing staff feedback, positive feedback regarding my performance. Again, it's about making sure they have communication about matters that are important, ensuring that they see their works connected to the coherence plan, and then, again, making sure this is a safe work environment. With regard to communication, if you see the data, you'll see that that actually has been increasing. I set my goal just a bit higher, so we'll continue, hopefully, to see increases there. The alignment declined last year. The responses were that fewer teachers saw that their work was aligned with the coherence plan, so we have some more work to do there. And then safety, a huge priority for me. I think you all know that continues to increase, and I just keep setting that bar higher and higher. My specific strategic actions include deploying family and staff surveys to get feedback on key messages and pride, ensure that the annual tactics of the communication plan again are achieved, make sure that we focus on alignment of what happens in the classrooms, and then discuss that regularly with principals. I'll have that conversation not just with Dr. Mo, but I'm out in the buildings. I'll be talking about that a lot with principals and hopefully with some teachers as well. And then again, continue to ensure that safety is a priority. I am active with the safety committee. They're very, very good at setting specific goals and working to achieve them. And then finally, my third goal relates to managing and increasing the feedback on my performance from the Board of Education as a district administrator on my professional practice rubric. I'll again be focusing on communications with the community. My strategies include supporting the board committee, working on communication with the community. So I know there's a committee of the board ad hoc working on this, so I will do what I can to support that work. I'll ensure the tactics of the communication plan refresh are achieved, and then I'll keep the board informed of progress on communications. So I just wanted to highlight for you a few things, and I'm looking forward to working towards achieving these goals this year. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for Dr. Miller? All right, the treasurer's report is available in the board docs library. School board liaison reports. Does anybody have any liaison reports? Please.
Grab that real quick. So my two liaison assignments are with Robinwood School and with the Franklin Education Foundation, and I have a quick update about each one. I was able to be at Robinwood School and meet with Mr. Nelson last week, actually on the day of the Robinwood Rush. I saw the kids doing their rush while they were outside for about 10 minutes before it started raining. Yeah. But I also had a chance to talk with him about the how they are working towards the coherence plan and the teachers meeting in their PLC groups, looking at map data, really digging in individually with each student and identifying the individual student needs and how to best meet those with our interventionists and all the different strategies there. And it's interesting to me how often they're meeting and talking about that. It really sounds like it's a very almost continuous process. So that was interesting. We'll be meeting again in November to talk with that after he comes back from Washington for the Blue Ribbon event. So, so that was Robinwood. And then a quick update from our Franklin Education Foundation. They're doing some really great things. So we have approved a grant, $10,000 to go towards the CNC lathe in the Sabre Manufacturing at the high school. So we are going to be working then with the district and community partners to raise the rest of the money, which is about $50,000 to actually get that CNC lathe, which will then enhance our students' ability. We have a CNC mill, and we'll be adding the lathe. I'm learning all these terms. But which really helps our students who want to go into that, that career in that field. And our Sabre Manufacturing students are actively producing materials and hoping that that will be able to increase their ability to produce materials and sell them to actual companies and be productive that way. Our student emergency funding is being utilized, so the Franklin Education Foundation has funds available for students in need, and that is being used at different buildings. And specifically at the high school, we'll be supporting the ACT prep class for families who are interested in that. So that's exciting. And then I think I mentioned this last meeting, but I'll mention it again. We are having our family trivia night, which will be on December 3rd. And leading up to that will be a virtual winter auction. So it's a virtual trivia event hosted by Dr. Beer and her husband, Dr. Kim. And we'll be having an auction with some really great items to bid on. So watch your social media, especially for those information about those things. And then we do have our ad hoc committee, which we'll be reporting on in November.
Sorry, please, Dr. Khan.
I'm the liaison for Forest Park Middle School, so I got an opportunity to visit the school almost 3 weeks ago. It was a Friday afternoon, and I had a meeting with the principal, and then also I went to the math literacy class and art class and music class, and it was one of, because when we voted with the mask, one of the things I wanted to see is that how it is working on ground with the 6th graders, having mask mandated and 7th and 8th graders no masks. It was working very well. I saw on hand that the 7th and 8th graders, because of the separate pods, the way it is built on, and the way the classes are done, was very effective. And I saw all the students, having the 6th graders having masks, and the 7th and 8th graders where, some of them are wearing masks. It's optional, but it was great to see. I also saw how the literacy, how the teacher was working on students with different level and focusing on some students who are at a bit higher level, and how she was tailoring them and some of the students. So with the different books and on how to kind of, so it was very interesting to see that, and I really enjoyed my visit, and they're doing some amazing work there, kudos to them.
Anybody else?
I did email high school for their goals and tactics. They're a very busy place, I'm sure, with all the athletic things going on, and I will probably schedule a meeting, but I do have the information. I'll be following up for the visit.
And, Friday, I'll provide you the forms you can use when you go and speak with the building principal or the department head, so that if you want to use them, you can, which gives you, something that you can bring back to this meeting then and use in your report. So it's a liaison report form. So just to make it a little easier for you. And the principals will know what you're going to ask them ahead of time too, so they can prepare for that.
Dr. Miller and I guess this isn't really board liaison, but we attended the Chamber of Commerce end of year event awards banquet last year. Got to speak with a number of people on the Chamber of Commerce and in city government, and it was a nice evening. Also attended the CISA board meeting last week, right before the Wisconsin Association of School Boards meeting, which almost everybody attended as well. So it was nice to hear Mr. Ashley, the president of WASB, speak. I thought his message was powerful, or at least his speech was good. Anybody else? I guess that's more community engagement. So I guess we can get into that.
I did attend the boys soccer game Saturday, which was a beautiful evening, and they did win. So the competition continues.
Congratulations to the tennis team. I saw the video of them leaving for state, and Mrs. Grobschman, I think your daughter was on the team. So congratulations to her and the rest of the team for a great season. I went to the football game last Friday night.
I'm watching on Facebook.
Yeah. I went to the trunk or treat at the library, which was, it was a little cold, but I think it would be a great event for the board in the future. I mean, there's a lot of families that go through. I think 500 children were there, and it's pretty easy. You just back your car in a spot, open your trunk, and hand out candy, and it was fun. It was cute. So
I did hear a lot of good feedback about
yeah,
that.
next year maybe you could, but they did appreciate the donation of the candy that the board provided, because someone did run out, so they used our candy to fill that in. So good event in the community.
I was saying to someone earlier today, there's just so much to be proud of in Franklin right now. So many different events and activities that are happening, and you did a great job listing off all of our athletic accomplishments
Yeah.
right now, and soccer games and football games. I'll add swim and dive to that. They go to conference this week, Friday and Saturday. University and varsity swim and dive will be going to that. But I also wanted to highlight our marching band, which did go to their state competition 2 weeks ago now, and managed to place at the highest level that they ever have. Franklin High School has never placed as high as they did. They came in third in the Quad A division with the highest score they've ever received. So our marching band accomplished something this year that they have never done before. So that was very, real Franklin proud kind of moment there as well.
How many kids are in the band, do you know?
Pardon me?
How many kids are in the band?
It's about 100, a little bit under 100 this year in terms of like the band, the marchers and the guard and everybody.
They're on the small side, but still a good size.
A little smaller this year than other years, but again, accomplished amazing things. They have a staff, our 4 music teachers and then the other ancillary staff have really worked incredibly hard with them, and their student leadership team, and really individualizing. I mean, they work starting back, they had their first rehearsal back in June, and they work from June all the way through the middle of October on their show. So it was a big accomplishment. There's also an orchestra concert tonight that we're all missing because we're here, so. But it's just nice to have that live performance back.
Well, one of us is there. She'll report on it next
Well,
week.
I was an outer on that, but yeah. So.
All right, I'm looking for a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.851D to review district threat of violence drill and pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.851C for purposes of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility to discuss termination of individual teacher contract.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I think we need a voice vote, please.
A roll call.
Roll call.
Mrs. Witkowski,
Yes.
Mr. Sprague,
Yes.
Mr. Alexandrovich,
Yes.
Mrs. Sapersky,
Yes.
Dr. Khan,
Yes.
and I also vote aye.
All right, the motion carries. We are in closed session at 8:02. Yes. I'm looking for a motion to approve the termination of an individual teacher contract as discussed in closed session. So moved.
Oh, Alan?
All right. Motion's been
Second.
moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
May I ask for a roll on that, please?
Yes.
Dr. Khan,
Yes.
I vote aye. Mr. Sprague,
Yes.
Mrs. Witkowski,
Yes.
Mr. Alexandrovich,
Yes.
Mrs. Sapersky.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Item 13, school board meeting debriefing, school board member comments. Anyone?
I'll just say again, I love having our schools come and give us reports again and being able to see the students and, especially first graders making those math connections. I think it's important to see what's happening in the schools.
Agree. Anyone else? Item 14, future agenda items. Early college credit and Start College Now request approvals, Inroads program, education for employment plan, new course approvals, 2022-23 school calendar, coherence plan update, board clerk's report and election notice, and annual assessment report. Only one meeting next month and one meeting in December. Adjournment, motion
Wait,
to.
question?
Yes.
Are we gonna bring back the budget documents? I thought that was coming back.
Yep.
Yes.
I have that mapped out. I'll send you that date when it's coming back.
Oh.
To review the budget
Yeah,
documents?
So
Yeah.
when is it? I mean, it's not on here?
No, it's not in November or December.
Oh,
No, because it's not prepared till almost spring for the June meeting.
so wait, is it gonna be January?
I don't know. I can send that to you. I'll have to look in the agenda drafts.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And so we will have the annual assessment report then, before the year end?
December.
And some of the other program reports, I think we asked to include some financial information on that. Did we do that?
So the reports moving forward would have them.
Well, like nursing, we didn't have any financial
Oh,
information.
no, I wasn't aware you wanted financial information in the health report.
Well, any report that I mean, a report has a financial aspect to it.
Yeah, I think we'd have to have more discussion about what you're looking for there.
I think we talked about that, and Jim already sent an email. I'll forward the email to you.
Yeah, I know it was definitely related to the Community Ed and Rec report, wanting more fiscal information in that report. Certainly we can have that conversation about where it belongs in the reports and what reports moving forward.
Okay.
All right, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 8:27. Thank you, everyone.